If you've been following along with our video series, then you know that we're asking and answering 10 questions. These questions and their answers come from a book by Rebecca McLaughlin called 10 Questions Every Teen Should Ask and Answer About Christianity. And we'd encourage you to take a look at this book as it goes a little deeper into each of the questions we'll be posing. We'll take a look at topics like universalism, diversity, sexuality, the afterlife, and more. And our hope is that as we engage with these topics, we'll all see how faith in Jesus isn't about blindly accepting religious tradition or dogma, but it's about thinking clearly, critically, and rationally about life's biggest questions, and ultimately coming to the realization that Jesus is in fact the way, the truth, and the life. In this video, we're going to answer the question, why can't we just agree that love is love? Sexuality is one of the biggest conversations in our culture right now, and it can be difficult as a follower of Jesus to know how to navigate these topics. We'll spend more time talking about the transgender issue in our next video, but right now, we're gonna dive in more specifically into the conversation around same-sex attraction. The slogan, "Love is love," has been a huge talking point over the last 5 or 10 years, and we wanna ask the question, is that even true? Is it true that love is love? Is all love the same? Does it matter who we love, who we marry, or as long as we love each other, we can do whatever we want? What's interesting to me is that we all know there are different types of love. There's the love you have for your best friend, regardless of their gender. That love is more like companionship. It's deep and reliable and comes from shared experience. There's the love you have for your family. That love is inherent in who we are, and we don't have a lot of choice in that. And then there's the love we have for romantic partners, a physical, sexual desire for another person. Now, it's interesting to me that when our culture says love is love, they're talking almost exclusively about sexual romantic love. They're essentially saying, it doesn't matter if a man loves a man or another man loves a woman. Those loves are equally valid, should be equally celebrated, and equally lived out. For our culture, love is love. And it doesn't matter who the love is between. If both people feel it, if both people have a physical, sexual desire for each other, they should be able to live it out however they'd like. But here's where things get tricky. If you're watching this and you're a follower of Jesus, then you know that he asks us to submit all of our desires to him. For our culture, if you want something, you should have it no matter the cost. If you feel something, then it must be true. For our culture, the most terrible thing you could do to someone is tell them they can't live the way they want, and to tell them that their desires are not the most important thing in the world. I think this idea of authority is the central tipping point in the conversation about sexuality and the church. It's the central point in answering our question, why can't we just agree that love is love? Because here's the reality. Followers of Jesus aren't claiming that same-sex attraction isn't real, but they are saying that all sexual activity is designed to exist within a covenant marriage between one man and one woman. Did you catch that? All sexual activity is designed to exist within a covenant marriage between one man and one woman. You see, Jesus asks everyone to lay down their desires, including their sexual desires, and submit them to his authority. To trust that he knows the best ways to live, even when it doesn't feel good to us in the moment. What Jesus is saying is that it doesn't matter if you're a man attracted to a man or a man attracted to a woman, all of your sexual desires should be laid down at my feet, and you should trust that I'll give you everything you need. At this point in the sexuality conversation, people usually ask something like this. Okay, if sexual activity, if sexual desires are supposed to find their fulfillment within a marriage, then why isn't God okay with a man and a man getting married, or a woman and a woman getting married? Why isn't God supporting of homosexual marriage? And the answer is rooted in the oldest story in the Bible. In Genesis chapter 1, in the creation story, we learn that God created humanity in his image. But we also learn that he created us male and female. And we'll talk more about this two-gender distinction and why it's important in our next video. But as we follow the story of the first man and first woman, we land on verse 24 of Genesis chapter 2, and it goes like this. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. You see, God's design from the very beginning is for man and woman to come together as one within the covenant of marriage. But here's the kicker. Marriage from the very beginning was always supposed to be a picture of God's love for his people. The love between a man and a wife was always supposed to point the world to the reality of God's love for his creation. We learn in the New Testament that a marriage relationship between a man and a woman is a reflection of Jesus' love for the church and the church's love for Jesus. A deep, sacrificial, unconditional love. You see, the way of Jesus calls us to live for more than just our physical desires. It calls us to lay down what we want and how we feel, and to pick up what Jesus wants and how he feels as our first priority. So when we're answering the question, why can't we just agree that love is love? The answer is this. For our world, who you desire physically and your right to pursue that desire no matter the cost is contrary to Jesus' way of life. For followers of Jesus, who you desire physically is submitted to Jesus' authority and can only be lived out within the context he designed it for. Now, I know this teaching isn't popular. I know this teaching isn't easy to wrap our heads around sometimes. And if you're watching this and you experience same-sex attraction, I want you to know that you're not broken. You're not hated. You too are created in the image of God. You too are his son or daughter, and he loves you more than you could ever know. I know it's hard to submit our feelings, our desires to Jesus. And I promise you won't be perfect at it, but it will always be worth it.